This episode is brought to you by me. Yep. Somewhere between the ashes of Alexandria and the secret chambers of Caesar's Rome, there existed a book, not of spells, but of formulas, not for power, but for preservation. These weren't just beauty rituals. They were rites of passage, oils anointed with symbols, herbs crushed under moonlight, hair wrapped under the vanity, but in protection. In this episode, we unravel those fragments, the real stories behind Cleopatra's sacred oils, her hair wrapping rituals, and the formulas they didn't burn, they buried. I voice parts of this episode using 11 Labs because if Cleopatra had access to synthetic speech, you better believe she would have made her scrolls go viral. Ba-dum-ba. I use 11 Labs to bring ancient stories to life with modern tech. I'm not sponsored, but it is an affiliate link. So a lot of my research time and heart goes into creating these videos. So if you sign up using my link, it really helps to support this channel with a small commission so I can keep going and bringing these lost rituals back to life. So click the links below in the comments section, and thanks for being a part of bringing this journey and bringing the ancient rituals back to life. Now it's time for our next sponsor, which is me again, because we don't have sponsors yet. Crafted from ancestral recipes and clean, natural ingredients, my Serenity Strands avocado shampoo bars are inspired by the women who came before me. No plastic, no chemicals, just rich oils, sacred traditions, and strands that tell your story. Pre-orders are now open at serenitystrands.shop, and every order helps keep these ancient rituals alive for the next generation. Now, back to the ritual. Before the world called her seductress, before Caesar crowned her Egypt's last hope, there was a woman in a chamber. Not a throne, a sanctuary. She wasn't writing laws. She was composing chemistry. This wasn't mythology. This was science. Cleopatra, daughter of Isis, queen of the Nile, wasn't just royal. She was a scientist of the senses. Cleopatra wrote a beauty book, an ancient apothecary of ancient rituals. Historians mention it in passing, but few explore its purpose, not because it was frivolous, but because it was forbidden. Galen, a Greek physician, claimed Cleopatra composed works on cosmetics and the care of body. Cyronius of Ephesus, a Roman-era gynecologist, cited her remedies in his writings. A 1st century medical scroll attributed to Cleopatra appears in the Viennan Discordes, a Byzantine medical manuscript preserved from the 6th century. These weren't lipstick tutorials. Her scrolls included hair elixirs, skin restoratives, and post-childbirth tinctures. For example, oils like castor oil, used by women who pressed them in the temple. They applied it to scalp at dawn. Black cumin, also found in King Tut's tomb, which healed and stimulated the hair. Aloe vera, called the plant of immortality. Mark Antony gifted her aloe gardens. Henna, used by priestess to prepare her for the throne, like garnet, and myrrh, her favorite scent. Plutarch wrote that her barge was perfumed with it, and Frederick, Greek doctors documented its use for hair loss and fertility. Moringa, it kept her skin glowing like the sunlight. Every ingredient backed by ritual, every ritual backed by reason. She wasn't applying beauty, she was preserving legacy. She wrote a Frederick infusions to thicken hair, moringa oil to restore softness, and castor oil warmed and blessed for shining the crown as the sun strikes Poseidon. Her appearance struck the eye. Her voice alone wrapped men in spells. Her skin, they said, glistened like the sun striking fresh gold. That glow, not myth. Ingredients found in tunes, castor oil, aloe, myrrh, Cleopatra's daily tools. In the desert, these tools sealed in moisture, shielded against wind, and gave her skin a supernatural sheen. But there was more. Before applying oil, she wrapped her hair in linens infused with blue lotus and crushed fenugreek. Egyptian priestess called it a living amulet, a protection spell worn like a crown. Most know the version of Cleopatra passed down by Rome, a siren, a temptress, a pawn. But that is propaganda. She was the only Ptolemaic ruler to read and write in Egyptian. She was trained in temple medicine, versed in astrology, alchemy, pharmacology, and perfumery. She didn't just wear beauty, she engineered it. Temple of Isis initiates were trained in healing and spiritual cosmetic application. The ancient Egyptian word for beauty, nefer, was linked to harmony, not appearance. Cleopatra's rituals were about balance between the sacred and the sensual, science and spellcraft. When she met Julius Caesar in 48 BC, she didn't bring an army. She brought a formula. Her presence was perfumed with frankincense and honey alloyed, her scalp freshly oiled, and her scrolls concealed in papyrus wrapped cylinders. According to Plutarch, her barge was scented so heavily you could smell her before you saw her. Records show Roman noblewomen began requesting Egyptian oils after her visit. They weren't buying products, they were buying a system. Cleopatra wasn't marketing beauty, she was exploring power. Before Cleopatra ruled with a crown, she inherited something far older, the rituals of the goddess Hathor. These weren't secrets, they were sacred sciences, passed from midwives to priestess, healers to queens. Each oil, each herb carried meaning, power, a lineage of the body, a map to the divine. Every morning before the sun crested the eastern gate of the palace, Cleopatra's attendants anointed her scalp with castor oil, kiki, no, not that kiki, pressed from seeds and left offerings in the tombs. Mixed with fenugreek and warmed over sacred flame, the oil was stirred in a counterclockwise spiral to mirror the orbit of the stars. The Ebers Papyrus, dating back to 1550 BC, documents castor oil as a treatment for hair loss. Fenugreek is listed as a cure for the fire of the scalp, indicating inflammation. Pliny the Elder praised Egyptian women's oils for their brilliance and resilience. She wasn't just preserving beauty, she was preparing an armor. Her shine was strategy, her scent, shield. Her oils weren't just botanical, they were mnemonic, memory devices. When Caesar breathed in myrrh, he wasn't just smelling a queen, he was inhaling her entire ancestry. The Kefi blend she wore contained blue lotus, frankincense, myrrh, and a trace of honey-soaked alloy, meant to recall Isis herself. To Rome, it was seduction. To Egypt, it was resurrection. The Temple of Edifu, inscriptions detailed Kefi blends used in daily ritual. Myrrh and alloy were associated with eternal youth and embalming. Cleopatra's use of perfume is documented by Plutarch, who wrote that
the sails of her barge were perfumed so that the people on the shore knew she was near before they saw her.
She made memory into fragrance, and fragrance into influence. When she slept, Cleopatra wrapped her hair not in vanity, but in protection. The linen strips held blue lotus, moringa, and black seed oil, each symbolizing a divine gift, purity, softness, and regeneration. Hair was sacred, representing the very essence of life itself. To damage the hair was to curse the spirit. And there's another secret behind Cleopatra's linen crown, one tied deeply to Egyptian priestess culture, where hair wrapping was not mere fashion, but a ritual of purification and empowerment. Hair wrapping was an essential part of purification rituals among Egyptian priestesses. Black seed oil, known as the blessed seed, was revered for its spiritual potency, while moringa oil was praised for its soothing, cooling, and eternal freshness. So valued, it was found preserved within the linen wrappings discovered in noble women's tombs. Even asleep, she wore her crown. And if this fascinates you, like it does me, I'm currently working on a deep dive series called Wrapped in History, the science stories and the secrets of headscarves. We'll trace this sacred tradition across empires and centuries, because Cleopatra wasn't the only queen to wrap her power in cloth. These weren't beauty hacks. These were technologies of the body. When Rome saw her shine, they called it seduction. But Egypt knew the truth. Her light was ancestral, her glow inherited. They say it was a fire that took her words, that when Julius Caesar's legions set the docks of Alexandria ablaze, the knowledge of 1,000 lifetimes turned to smoke, but not all of it. Some scrolls were spared, not by chance, but by design. Roman historians whispered of a scroll rumored to be penned by Cleopatra herself that survived the inferno. It wasn't about war or astrology. It was something more subversive, a book of formulas designed not to rule others, but to rule the self. The physician Galen wrote that Cleopatra authored books on beauty and the care of the body. Medical scholars in Byzantine reference her recipes centuries later, some appearing in the Viennan Dioscorides, a preserved 6th century medical manuscript. It had no title, only a seal, an ibis sacred to thought, god of writing and hidden knowledge. After her death in 30 BC, Cleopatra's scroll vanished into Roman vaults, but it didn't die. Over time, fragments of her work were translated, rewritten, encoded, passed into the hands of monks, alchemists, and archivists. By the 1400s, a mysterious record appears in Vatican documents, Formula Reginae Egypti, the Queen of Egypt's formula. Italian Renaissance texts mention Egyptian formulas for complexion and scalp stimulation, sometimes attributed anonymously. A few match recipes in De Materia Medica, though annotated in mirrored Latin script. The scroll didn't burn, it transformed, cloaked in Latin, buried in apothecaries, hidden in monasteries. Then came Da Vinci. In 1513, he entered Rome under papal patronage, not to paint, but to study the Vatican's secret archives. Months later, he emerged with sketches never seen before. Spiraling diagrams of scalp oils, experiments with alloy and castor oil viscosity, and strange mirrored notes on restoring shine to the crown. Many of Da Vinci's anatomical and cosmetic sketches are still indecipherable due to his reversed Latin script. Some pages reference Egyptian knowledge of bodily rejuvenation. Was he recreating what Cleopatra once wrote, or deciphering it? And then, silence. The scroll vanishes from record after 1493, but the knowledge didn't. Because while the empires erased the queen's words, women remembered the rituals passed on from mother to daughter, priest to apprentice, not in palaces, in kitchens, in whispers, in oil, in linen, and steam. The scroll beneath her crown wasn't made of gold. It was made of recipes, rituals, rebirth. And while history tried to erase it, it's still here. Every time you oil your scalp, every time you wrap your hair, you are remembering her. Even if you never knew her name was written in the ink of survival. The empires may have stolen the scroll, but they couldn't steal the memory. Cleopatra's formulas didn't vanish. They scattered into kitchens, temples, villages, village gardens, and sacred songs. In Nubia, the lands just south of Egypt, women preserved castor and moringa rituals, not in books, but in touch. Every braid was record, every oiling a transmission. They didn't call it Cleopatra's formula. They called it Tuesday. What Cleopatra wrote, they wove. After slavery scattered African people across oceans, the scroll became oral. In Haiti, castor oil became oui muscati, a staple of healing, a ritual of remembrance. They added cloves to banish evil, black seed for protection, not because they read her scroll, but because the recipe was already inside them. Cleopatra's apothecary didn't vanish. It sailed thousands of miles away. On a different continent, another lineage preserved what Rome tried to erase. In ancient Tamil texts, queens mixed fenugreek, shikakai, and hibiscus to keep hair long, soft, and sacred. Cleopatra may have never walked these lands, but her science, it had twins. It wasn't just a scroll, it was frequency, a knowing, a reverence. You don't need to see the scroll to know it exists. It exists in the way your grandmother said, hold still, in the way you reach for the same bottle she did, in the recipes that don't come from YouTube. They come from your bones, from generations passed down over centuries, rituals embedded in lineage. We carry Cleopatra not as a myth, but as a memory. This part, it's personal for me. When I first started researching Cleopatra's beauty book, this ancient scroll that somehow disappeared through time, I was stunned, not just by the fact that she wrote one, but by what it means. I recommend anyone watching this to go do your own digging because honestly, it's fascinating. And I might do another episode on it. So leave me a comment if you like me to dig deeper into your beauty because honestly, I truly would love it. But what really stopped me in my tracks was realizing that some of the rituals I grew up around, the ones I thought were just family things, they were ancient. If you've ever seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding, there's a scene where they use Windex for everything, literally every ailment. When I saw that with my family for the first time, we laughed so hard because in my Haitian family, that's oui muscati. Okay, you've got a cold, you use it. Your scalp is dry, you use it. You cut your finger, you rub that on it, you use some. I mean, I grew up watching this and we used it for coughs, colds, massages, hair growth, burns, everything. The exact same oil, black seed, castor, clove. Those were in Cleopatra's formulas. Haitian castor oil traditions mirror ancient Egyptian practices and some early voodoo rituals. Now hold on, hold your horses. I know voodoo can be controversial, but we're just talking about oils here that were offered to Zel Dantor, a spirit of feminine strength and protection considered by many scholars to be a spiritual echo of Isis and Hathor. So no, Cleopatra's apothecary didn't disappear. It sailed across oceans, across generations. It lived in whispers from grandmother to mother, from mother to daughter, from daughter to granddaughter, each touch carrying secrets older than memory, deeper than time itself. And to me, that's the magic of this work, uncovering how something as simple as an oil recipe carries centuries of survival, memory, and brilliance. That's why I love history. That's why I care about hair care. Because when you strip it all back, it's not vanity, it's legacy. This knowledge was never truly lost because we were never meant to find it on a museum wall. We were meant to feel it in our bones, on our scalp, in our hands, in our rituals. The scroll may be gone, but the story isn't, because stories like this live in us. In a world overflowing with trends, ads and quick fixes. Taking the time to learn your hair, your real texture, your real needs feels almost radical, but it shouldn't be. It should feel like coming home, because every coil, every kink, every wave, and bone straight strand will respond differently to castor oil, aloe vera, henna, or amala. We are not monoliths. We are mosaics, living strands of ancestral knowledge, cultural variation, and biological brilliance. But if we take the time to observe, to reconnect, the possibilities, they're endless. This isn't about returning to the past to escape the present. It's about reclaiming knowledge that was always ours and choosing with intention what we carry forward, not out of resistance, but out of remembrance and reverence. This isn't a trend. This isn't aesthetic, the clean beauty movement, the natural hair care boom. We've been doing that for thousands of years. Before there were brands, there were scrolls. Before there were influencers, there were priestesses. And before there were Sephora, there was Cleopatra, pressing oil into her scalp, not for a look, but for longevity, for sacredness. Maybe the scroll never needed to survive in paper. Maybe it was meant to survive in us, in our memory, in our muscle, in our morning rituals. When I oil my hair now, it doesn't feel like a task. It feels like time travel. It feels like something bigger than me is watching, smiling, and saying, "Girl, yes, you remembered. Welcome back." If you made it this far, thank you, truly. If you like this episode, please tap the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. It may seem small, but it makes a huge difference. It tells the algorithm the story matters, and it helps more people like yourself find it. So I really appreciate it. I put a lot of heart in history and late nights, and this episode took me 2 months to write. Every like and share and comment helps me keep growing and growing. So if this resonated with you, support this story, support the ritual, and I will see you next time right here. Thanks, y'all.